Things are heating up in the eastern Pacific hurricane season. The storm Hillary has become a hurricane and is expected to increase to be a major hurricane over the next day. Now, the track has it impacting Baja California, Mexico, and Southern California. This storm and the eastern Pacific season are completely separate from the Atlantic season that impacts us here in the Triad. Well, the nation's leading hurricane experts updated their outlook for the Atlantic hurricane season that impacts us. They're predicting even more activity than they expected back in May. Last week, officials with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration announced 14 to 21 named storms could materialize before the end of the year, with as many as 5 becoming major hurricanes.
Major hurricanes are hurricanes that reach Category 3, 4, or 5 with winds of 111 miles per hour or greater. These ranges take into account the 5 named storms, including 1 hurricane, that already formed this season.
Well, the hurricane season typically peaks around August through October, officially ends November 30th. So we're heading into what's usually, Tim, the busiest hurricane season for all of us. So they upped the amount of storms?
Yeah, and this was a little surprising to some, and there are reasons behind this, but it's been a very quiet start to the year. Why did they increase the forecast? Well, I'll show you the good and the bad that we have coming our way. The bad part first is the temperature in the Atlantic Ocean right now is about as hot or as warm as it has ever been. We call this a sea surface temperature. So what is the water temperature at the very top of the Atlantic Ocean? All those darker red shades representing water temperature generally above 80 degrees. Let me show you the Gulf of Mexico first. This is the worst. Upper 80s to near 90 degrees across the entire Gulf. That's bathwater type of stuff, of course. Mid 80s in the offshore waters that are very important to us because that's where storms travel before they get to the Carolinas. Even all the way over to Africa, you have temperatures in the 80s. So water is way warmer than usual. The good news, if there is any, is that we're in an El Nino pattern. Usually with an El Nino year, it makes the winds more harsh across the Atlantic. What that means is that as hurricanes are trying to form and do their thing, they have a harder time actually organizing and staying together. So typically in El Nino season, which we are in right now, you have fewer hurricanes. So on the one side, it's an El Nino year. On the flip side, we have this really warm water, warmer than typical. So both of those forces are going to be pushing and pulling against an active or an inactive year. So far, so good. We've only had 5 named storms. It is starting to show some signs of life, though. This is the Gulf of Mexico. Heading into next week, there's a 1 in 3 chance we could see a depression form. That would not impact the Carolinas. These two, way out to sea, closer to Africa, they could get their act together a little bit sooner. There's a good chance they could be tropical depressions or tropical storms by next week. But the good news with these, neither would impact the Carolinas either. So far, so good for us. But you want to keep your guard up, especially into September and early October. If you live in the Carolinas a long time, you know that's usually when we get our storms. A little bit more information on Hurricane Hillary. We briefly mentioned this at the top of the show. In the Pacific Ocean, it is going to be forecast to move toward Baja California, Mexico. That's right there by Sunday. And then this is Southern California, San Diego, Los Angeles, even places like Las Vegas could get an enormous amount of rain from the system and potentially some high winds. Not something they're used to in the desert Southwest, so tropical impacts pretty rare over that way, but they will have to be on guard. If you have friends, family in that area, make sure they're taking it seriously. In the meantime, you can count on the News 2 team to keep you up to speed and in the know before any storms form that might impact us here on our side of the ocean.